Welcome, everyone. This is the Language Technology Podcast from SIL International, the December edition. I'm Doug Higbee, International Coordinator for Language Technology in SIL. And today we have Ron Lockwood, who is joining as the co-host. Welcome, Ron.
It's good to be here, Doug.
So, we've got a number of topics Language Technology Podcast from SIL International. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Ron, do you have a headset that you could wear? So, anyway, this weekend I updated my Android phone to Lollipop, and I'm very impressed with it. And Ron also just got, what did you get, a Nexus 9 recently?
Yeah, I sure did. Here it is. And it's brand new, kind of a pretty recent addition that Google just came out with, so I'm very happy with it. Just been playing around with it, and as a iOS user, I'm finding it fairly straightforward of transitioning to that kind of operating system, and yeah, pleased with it so far.
Yeah, so a lot of our development efforts in the mobile arena are going to be focusing on Android, largely due to its market share in the world. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's well over 1 billion users worldwide of Android. So I think we'll also be doing some development for iPhone or iOS, because we do have a number of areas where iPhone is still the technology of choice. And but anyway, I was quite impressed with Lollipop on my phone. The battery life is just about double what it used to be, and from what I understand, that's partly due to the fact that Android has minimized the amount of apps that can run in the background. So it's come up with some kind of way to manage that in order to keep the background processes and use of the processor from draining the battery. So today on our agenda, we want to talk about keyboards. The big news is that Keyman 9 has been kind of in beta form for a long time. I've had it installed on my computer for maybe 6 months already, and just recently Keyman announced that Keyman 9 will have a free edition. This is really great news. I know that a lot of people have shied away from Keyman as a result of their selling keyboards and going commercial, but this will be similar to what we've had in previous versions of Keyman Lite, which was limited to 2 keyboards. This will have apparently a free license for Keyman Developer, which you had to pay a lot of money for in the past, but in order to make your keyboards, you're going to need Keyman Developer, and so to me it seems like a good strategy. What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, I think it's excellent that there's some free versions out there. I think there was kind of a transition where people went away from Keyman because of cost.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
You know, in fact, one of the software development proposals that came up for review in the recent round of software development was plans for a SIL authored keyboard system. And their goal was more or less one keyboard to rule them all. In other words, you could write a keyboard script that would work on Windows, on iOS, on Android, Linux, and Mac. It was a bit idealistic. Some people wondered whether it was attainable at all, but the principle was that you write kind of one keyboard and then each operating system would have to figure out how to implement it on their platform. So this would be going at a lower DLL level. But before SAL went down that path and invested in keyboard development, they decided to give TVoltsoft a call. And recently, their change to offer a free license for Keyman, at least a free version of Keyman, has kind of put them back in the arena, because one of the problems that we have is if we develop a keyboard in some country where people have limited means and we'd like to give those keyboards away, we can't do it with the previous versions of Keyman. And so this kind of opens up the possibilities again. And now in talks with Mark Durden of TVoltsoft, it looks like SAL is going to scrap their plans to work on a completely new keyboard implementation, and we're going to try to work together with TVoltsoft. Details are not clear at this point, but we are optimistic that something good will come out of this. What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, I think this is really exciting. Just imagine writing your keyboard once, and then everybody can use it, whether it's Android, iOS, Linux, doesn't matter. So the things that you've maybe written for one OS already, those can just multiply to all the other devices. So this is really exciting if we can get this happening. And like Doug said, things are promising. We can't share all the details, but things are looking promising.
Yeah, and already Keyman is active on the iPad, on Android, and on Windows, as well as Linux. Mm-hmm. So we have 4 platforms already that we get just by using Keyman. So it's really exciting if we have the opportunity now to work together with TVoltsoft somehow in order to, put this keyboard struggle behind us. It seems like everybody's trying different solutions and everybody's trying to get some kind of free keyboard, and all of these free keyboards and other solutions are ending up costing us a lot in terms of labor, developing keyboards, and a lot of things. So I'm really excited about this too.
Yeah, the maintenance involved in maintaining keyboards is pretty costly, and if TVoltsoft has done the groundwork in all these different devices, that's really going to give us a leg up. So
yeah, it's been a while since I've done keyboard development, but I'd like to give it a try again. The version 9 for Windows is supposed to be lean and mean, and I don't know that it says on their website that they've done a lot of optimization, so it'd be interesting to see if the keyboard experience improves as a result. But anyway, this is good news, and we'll see what happens from here. Scripture App Builder is kind of making steady progress. We're hoping for a beta release, or no, I guess we're hoping for a full release before the end of the year. I guess that would be coming up pretty soon. Basically, Scripture App Builder, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned this last month too, is an app that will develop a Scripture app for Android. The development app runs on Windows, and you take Scripture text from Paratext and compile it and get it to run on an Android with audio text if you so desire. One of the recent additions is the ability to do more of a picture book so that it doesn't have to be scripture text, but it can be some other kind of text as long as it's tagged in the same way. So you can have a picture at the top of the screen and have the text underneath the picture be scrolling down, have audio files attached, and it pretty much works the same way as the Scripture app, but one picture per page, and then you would switch to the next page and then the text would read and scroll down again.
Doug, I've got an email showing some screenshots if you'd like to see that.
Sure, why don't you put that up?
There we are. So you can see there's a picture at the top and then highlighted portions of the text as the audio is playing. So very nice feature.
Cool. Well, hopefully we can see that in a live demo at another point. So let's see. Next up here is the language software development prioritization process in SIL. We've met as a committee. There were a couple different rounds, and right now I have a list of the Tier 1 projects that have been approved for development in the next 6 months. So basically, those projects are listed here. Bloom is going to be developed, and Bloom is a literacy app that will help people develop literacy content. And right now, I want to just pause a moment and welcome Steve White, who just joined us from Waxhaw. Are you there, Steve? Okay. Steve's not here. Let me send him the link a sec. And I have to thank our listeners for their patience as we try to navigate this. This is our second monthly podcast, and we hope to make regular progress. And maybe with a little post-editing, we'll delete these glitches out. So now back to the software prioritization process. Bloom is up for some work. It was rated Tier 1. Steve's trying to get in. Okay, well maybe Ron, you can see if you can get Steve in while I continue. So Bloom is going to be working on adding send and receive. They have a lot of teams that are working together on producing literacy materials, and as a result there is a definite need for send and receive functionality in order to synchronize the different copies of the documents that they're working on in order to produce quality reading materials quickly. So some other things that they'll be working on this next release are just overall maintenance. Bloom has been adding a lot of features quickly, and as a result, it's come a long ways in a short time. But at the same time, there needs to be work done on increasing the stability and solidness of Bloom. And also, they're going to be rethinking the source and vernacular distinction. Right now, when you have a project in Bloom, right on the onset, you need to decide whether this is a source project. In other words, we're making one book that's going to be translated into a dozen different languages. But then if you decide to make a vernacular book, your goal is different. You're just going to be producing many books in a single language. This is good when you start, but later on it can get confusing because a vernacular book that you make, you might want to turn around right away and use it as a model for other books. So they're going to relook at that in Bloom and see if they can improve that. Also, the topic of background images on pages came up, as well as producing an A6 page format, which would be about a quarter page size. So in the meantime, I think we have Steve with us now. Steve from Waxhaw, welcome.
Yeah, hello.
So Steve's going to be watching the chat room if anyone is in the chat room, and can field questions for later. So thanks for doing that, Steve.
All right.
So another project that came up for review is Flex History View. So basically, Fieldworks has been getting better and better over the years, and recently Send and Receive has been added, a way for people to synchronize language data between multiple projects. However, one of the problems with Send and Receive is that it's hard to tell who has done what. Send and Receive in Flex works right now like a black box. If there is no conflict, the data just gets merged in the background and you can't see what has been added and where it's gone to. And as you can imagine, this makes some of the linguists rather nervous. I'm not sure if you've had experience with this, Ron, if you understand why they might be nervous.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of merging projects and whose changes get done, and maybe something happened behind the scenes, but you're not quite sure. I think this is going to be a big help to really detail who did what. One question that brings up for me is this going to allow rollback to a certain version? Do you know that, Doug?
Well, I think that this is coming about in stages, so I know that initially the project is more of a history viewer so that you can see the history and who made what changes. As a second stage to this project, they want to add the ability to roll back changes, but for now, at least in the initial phase, it will just be to indicate what change was made where so that the change can be manually reverted or fixed if the project administrator has a problem with it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I've had the rollback need a few times, and it'd be nice to not have to go to the developers to say, okay, fix the garbage that just got put in the last version or something.
Right. So it is an intermediate step. In fact, one of the other projects was kind of related to this and did not make the cut, and that was a user and role distinction in our dictionary software. So you might want to have a user who is given the ability to add example sentences, but not to add new words, or they might be able to add definitions or meanings for words without adding new words, or they wouldn't be able to delete any entries, but they could add new entries. So this whole idea of giving different permissions to dictionary users based on role, it was not given a high enough priority among the project reviewers to make the cut. So this Flex history view is going to be done, but there isn't going to be the user and role-based features that people might also want to see. So there's some more progress happening with Flex. Another project that got prioritized high is called Flex, Removing Barriers to Adoption. So basically, there's a number of people who are using Flex quite happily. They're very satisfied with it. It does most of what they need it to do, and now even doing send and receive, it's a great product. But there's other people whose projects don't fit into the Flex box. In other words, they might be using Toolbox, or they might be using some other system, and they specifically have shied away from Fieldworks because it does not handle their data model. Now, there's a number of different scenarios, and it'll be difficult to get into the specifics here. I know that one of them has to do with multiple senses of words and being able to have two glosses for a single sense currently is not possible. Each new gloss turns out as a different sense in Fieldworks. So this is just one of the issues that has to be looked at in order to make it easier for people to start using Flex. And I guess one of the biggest issues is importing data from Toolbox and from other sources. I know, Steve, actually, you've probably done some conversion of data. Have you ever imported data into Fieldworks?
I did a little experimentation with importing Paratext interlinear into Fieldworks, and so I have done some imports of standard format text out of Toolbox into Fieldworks.
Okay, so more for texts, but not dictionaries.
Well, yeah, I think the Toolbox, the Toolbox projects were dictionary type things,
okay.
Or lexicons.
And Ron, have you ever done data import into Fieldworks?
Oh yeah, multiple times.
Okay, so you would understand why this is a big problem for people, because the import process is just very complicated. And I'm not sure how much they can do to make it less complicated, but they're going to do what they can. Currently, there's a separate tool called Solid, S-O-L-I-D, that you can use to help analyze your data and prepare it to move from Toolbox into Fieldworks. But really, that's a high-level tool that your average user isn't going to mess around with. And so anything that can be done to bring that import process into Fieldworks itself and make it easier for a user to import data is going to be a big advantage and help adoption of Fieldworks. Do you have any comments, Ron?
Yeah, I think just anything that can help people just go straight from Toolbox into Flex is going to be a big win for us. But like you said, it's not going to solve every problem. A lot of the problems are maybe data consistency in Toolbox, which is easy to have that problem in Toolbox because of anything goes basically in Toolbox. So yeah, there's some improvements that can be made, more automation from Toolbox, but take that with a grain of salt that there are always going to be data issues.
Yeah. Our user Matthew Lee just commented and said that he does data import into Fieldworks all the time. I'm not sure if he's saying he's happy with the current state of affairs or not. I would assume that he'd be happy too to get new features built into Flex to make this import better. So we also have a project in called Hear This Maintenance. Now, anything that's called maintenance is not the kind of project that you get excited about, but we'll be seeing a demo from Ron later on Hear This. And Hear This is a program that enables you to record scripture text. And it enables an average user to just read scripture text verse by verse and record it and put together a pretty polished recording of chapters or whole books of scripture. And it will also enable it to be synchronized with the text when used in the Scripture App Builder. So one of the requests was to make Hear This work independently of Paratext. So Paratext is a rather complex program, and to ask somebody to learn how to use Paratext, install it, and use it just to be able to get access to the scripture text in order to use Hear This and do the recording is a pretty tall order. So the goal is to make Hear This function completely independently of Paratext, and thus lowering again the bar for people to be able to use Hear This. Another request is to make it use the digital Bible library bundles, which Paratext can produce. So with that idea, you would have somebody export their data from Paratext. You could send it to somebody who would then import it into Hear This and just start doing the recording. So this is going to be worked on in this next round. Language Forge crowdsource. Now this is something that I'm going to step aside and let Ron talk about, because Ron is the champion for this project. If you don't understand the way these projects work, each software development proposal has to have somebody from the field who serves as a product champion. They then interface between the developers and the users on the field, and they help define and shape the project. So Ron was involved in writing this one up. So what's this one about, Ron?
Yeah, well, I'd love to talk about it for a couple hours, but we don't have that long. But yeah, what we have these days is the ability to work on lexicons on our own machines, and then if we use things like Webinary or other tools, we could put it online as a static, basically a static dictionary. But as languages are evolving, you know, it's just a snapshot of really what the language is. And then throw in the fact that language communities don't get much involvement in this whole process. So this whole idea is be able to let the language communities own a dictionary in an online repository. And they would be able to expand it, add to it, fill out glosses in all kinds of languages that they choose, and also make it a very attractive place for people to come see their language, develop it in terms of a dictionary. So it would have ties into social media such as Facebook and other social media. There would be kind of incentives as part of it to, you know, say who put in the most words this month, and kind of have a leaderboard. we can do all kinds of things that could spring off of this, such as, maybe today we're going to gather words on a particular semantic domain. We'll put a picture up there of maybe cooking pots, and give us all the different words that might come to mind when you're talking about cooking in your culture. So there's so much that we can do here, but the basics of it is get an online dictionary out there that other people can contribute, and the bar is lowered. You can even contribute without being a registered user, but we would encourage people to log in, register, and then they can add and maybe even get enough experience to be one of the maybe mentors who kind of configure and approve content and things like that. So I think it's a very exciting thing, a great place that we're going, and be able to get online dictionaries working. And by the way, we are talking about interoperability with our current tools. So import and export to Flex and WeSay is definitely part of the picture there.
Yeah, that's great news, and the interoperability is really important because I know that there was a dictionary collaboration effort with these goals in the past, but one of the reasons that it didn't get very far was because of this interoperability. There wasn't a way to get our data into it and back out of it easily. So this is also kind of in contrast to an existing project which also got prioritized for this round, and that is the LanguageForge mobile/offline dictionary. So basically, LanguageForge, if you're familiar with WeSay, LanguageForge now has the option of using a web version of WeSay. So you will have all the collaboration features and abilities that you would when installing WeSay on your computer, but from any web browser. This, of course, makes it cross-platform. You could run it on Mac, Linux, or Windows, and you could work on it from an internet cafe. But one of the reasons I really like the crowdsource idea is passwords are a huge obstacle for people to get involved. And if you put a password on something, it's going to keep a lot of people out who would normally want to contribute. So the crowdsource idea has to have some level of involvement for people without passwords, where they can maybe vote up and down entries or put in comments. But then as people do get passwords and log in, they can get more visibility in the community and kind of get rewarded for their contributions. So, but that being said, the LanguageForge effort is going to continue, and they're going to focus on doing mobile and offline ways of editing data. So instead of just using your browser on a PC, you will now be able to use your cell phone and edit data, add entries to a dictionary, and you might be collecting words in a language and be traveling somewhere, and if you hear a new word, you could add it right away to the dictionary via your cell phone. So this would be good. One of the features of HTML5 is that it allows software to store things offline and then synchronize when the user is back online. And so they're going to take advantage of these features in the HTML5 language, and they'll turn on those features for offline use. So when a user gets back online, the changes that were made offline will then be synchronized back with the dictionary. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Language Forge mobile and offline use. Ron, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great development, and the Language Forge that's there already is really amazing what they got going already to be able to do kind of a WeSay environment on the web. And that's really going to be the foundation for this crowdsourcing system. So we're already quite a way along the road to developing it. And then adding the ability to have persistent data when you're offline is going to be really key for some of these remote locations and things like that. So exciting stuff.
So moving right along, there's Scripture Forge. Scripture Forge has the idea of allowing community involvement in Scripture translation. So the idea is the people who are trained in biblical languages such as Hebrew and Greek will be able to work on the translation, but then in terms of naturalness of the text, they'd like to get feedback from as wide a group of people as possible as to the quality of the translation. And so the Scripture Forge site has been set up with that in mind so that the team can ask a whole group of people to log into a website and to look at the data and to send in their opinions on how the wording is, whether it is natural or whether it needs improvement. So the first experiment has taken place already, and the results are varied. One of the problems was that it was hard for them to it was hard for the people to log in and then be focused on what their task was, because as you add new chapters, there's a whole range of content in there, and it was hard for the contributors to focus on their area of task. So they're going to add basically a workflow method to allow users to see and work on only relevant parts of the text, and then to be able to get feedback for send and receive feedback for their results. So that's a continuing effort. And then the last one that was prioritized for this next round is WeSay. WeSay, again, maintenance sprint. So the WeSay users who are really sold on WeSay as the way to go will be excited about this. One of the problems we have between WeSay and Fieldworks is that Fieldworks talks about a gloss for a word and about a definition. The gloss is always a short 1 or 2 word equivalent, and the definition is a longer description of what the word means. However, in WeSay, they've shortened both of them into something called meaning. So users will add meanings to words, and whether that gets put in the gloss field or the definition field, some people use it one way and others use it another way. So I think they want to clear that up and make it more evident what people are adding their meanings to, which field they go in, so that there isn't this disparity between Fieldworks and WeSay. So, yeah, I'm not sure, Ron, if you've had much experience with WeSay, or if you've been mainly on the Flex side.
I've got some use of WeSay, not in an actual language project, but in teaching and using it in various ways. And yeah, this gloss definition, I definitely bumped into that problem before, so it'd be nice to get that sorted out. One thing I see in number 3 is add example sentences. I'm a little confused by that because I thought that was already a task that we had for adding example sentences, but maybe there's something else.
Yeah, since this is the last one, I think I got interrupted mid-sentence. Actually, you can add an example sentence, but I think the request is to add example sentences and their translation in the same pass. So right now, I think you can only add the sentence and then the translation of that sentence has to be done in a separate pass.
Oh, okay. I see.
So yeah, so I guess that's the list of projects in this tier. And we have a question here from the chat room. If you're writing a dictionary in your language, gloss does not make sense. Are most We Say dictionaries monolingual or multilingual? Well, I think one of the main targets for the We Say dictionary is the monolingual dictionary. So that's probably where this meaning came from. A gloss, as Matthew points out, is only relevant in the case of a multilingual dictionary where you want a 1 or 2 word equivalent in another language. So if someone is making a We Say dictionary in a monolingual context, they're just looking for the meaning of the word, which would be the equivalent of a definition. So I don't know how they're going to solve this problem in We Say, but maybe it would have to be more evident at the outset whether you are going to be working on a monolingual dictionary or whether you're working on a bilingual dictionary, and then maybe that will change where the meaning field goes to.
Could be.
So for all of these projects, this isn't just going to happen at some point in the future. This is actively being started right now, and for the next 6 months, these top, I think there were 6, these top projects are going to be what are being worked on. 3, 6, 8, top 8 projects. So we're going to see some progress in all of these areas in the next 6 months, and then even some of the tier 2 projects, which we haven't had time to look at today, may even get worked on if there's time left over. And for all of these projects, if any of you would like to be involved, there's ways to be involved, for some more than others, but we're going to need people to be actively testing the solutions that are being worked on. And if you'd like to be an early tester or beta tester of some of these products, or if you have some ideas about how to develop them better, then your input is valuable. We're looking for people from the field to be able to give feedback and provide input to the developers. So links are here. If you don't know how to get in touch with the development effort on any of these projects, you could just send me an email at my email address, doug_higbee@sil.org. So this is the end of our news portion. Now we're going to turn it over to Ron, and he's going to give us a little demo of Hear This.
Okay, Doug, thanks. Just wanted to add one more thing. The 6-month development effort, as I heard, starts beginning of February. Is that right? Is when it kind of officially starts?
Okay, I'm not clear on when it actually starts, so if you've heard that, that's probably accurate.
Yeah, I think in January they'll be finishing up things from the last round and a few maintenance kind of things, and then beginning of February, kind of they head out on the new projects.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about Hear This a little bit. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully it'll be coming out fine for you guys. Okay. Hear This. I don't know how many of you are already familiar with this, and maybe this is just stuff you've already heard, but many have not heard about here this. What is it? It's basically a tool that empowers users to do their own recordings. Now we have really good vernacular media people in SIL and outside of SIL that help us with recordings, and they do a great job. But sometimes the user who's doing translation, maybe the frontline people, would just like to go ahead and do the audio recording themselves. And this is a great tool to enable them to do that. They don't have to have a lot of involvement from anybody else. So let's take a look at kind of a tour of this window. This comes out of the Palasso software development, and one of their kind of easy-to-use pieces of software in the lines of WeSay. And I really like the way they think of the interface and make it simple. So at the top here we have a folder where you can choose which Paratext project you're working on. Right now you do have to have Paratext on your computer, but as Doug was saying, in the future they want to make it independent of having to have Paratext there. So here's where you would open your Paratext project, choose the one that you want to do the recording in. I've already got one open right now, and the one I have open is the World English Bible. Then you have settings across the top. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Publishing. And then you see all these blue boxes. This indicates graphically the books of the New Testament and the Old Testament. The top line is the Old Testament. The bottom line is the New Testament, and as you hover over each box, you see what book it is. So this kind of gives you a quick view of what's been done as far as recording. The orange box shows which book I'm on at the moment. But you see an underline in some of these other ones. That means there's partial audio recording that's been done in that book. So there's been something done in Exodus, and then something in a couple of New Testament books there. Now if you look at toward the end of the New Testament, you see a check mark. 3 John has a check mark there. That means the recording is done for 3 John. So that's a nice graphical view of that. And then when you're on a particular book, you look under the next set of boxes, and this shows you the number of chapters that need to be recorded. And as I click on the box, you see it goes to each chapter. I have the introduction done already, so that already has a check mark. Now as I click on chapter 1, for example, you'll see this next area shows how many blocks there are. So there's 71 blocks in this chapter, and block is distinct from verse, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this view here allows you to click on the timeline, basically, of all the different verses. And as you record a verse, if I go to the book of Mark in chapter 1, you'll see some blue segments there. Now that shows that something has already been recorded. If it's gray, then nothing has been recorded. Okay, now if we go to the bottom of this screen, let me bring this up a little bit. You'll see a couple controls down here. You can make the text smaller or make the text bigger, and that's very nice. This next one is, let me go to John chapter 1 to illustrate this one. This breaks the block into lines. It doesn't change what the block is consisting of, but it changes how it's displayed. So if I go to this verse, you see right now I have the paragraph thing on, and it gives me a new line for each segment after a comma. If I take this off, then I just get the whole segment in one line. So this is kind of helpful to keep people from just running phrases together when there should be kind of a pause there. Going along the bottom, I have the skip block. This can be visible or not visible, depending on how you do the settings. And this just simply means I want to skip that particular piece because that doesn't need recording. You can go back to it, and then you can unskip it. And then on the right side, we have a view of how high my microphone level is. And this shows you that it is actively listening on your microphone. And if this were a headset, you would see a different icon here for a headset. So it indicates, where it's expecting to get the microphone feed from. Now let's talk a little bit about what makes up a block. And for that, I'm going to bring up my Paratext window here. One nice thing that helps us as language technology people is that while we're working with this, it actually scrolls to the right chapter and verse as we're working on it. Now, what makes up a block? Basically, a block is a unit up to a period, so sentence level units. But also, SFM marker units are also considered a block. So if I go to chapter 1 of Mark, you'll see on the Paratext side on the right, we have all these quotations. Well, those are all going to be different blocks. If I scroll through those, you'll see each one, like right here is the first quote. It's in the middle of verse 2, and then the next quote in verse 2, and then verse 3. So either periods mark the block or an SFM marker. Not so important for the end user to know this, but just for you guys to be aware of that. Okay, so how do you actually do a recording? Let's give this a try. Let's go to John chapter 1, and let's do a recording. It's very simple to do the recording. You press and hold the mouse or the space bar, and then say a recording, and then you release. So I'll do that right now. Chapter 1. Now I'm not going to play it back for you, but if I do the play, I hear it in my headset. It says chapter 1. Now if I'm not happy with that, I just click and record again, and it records it again and throws away the old thing. So very easy to use. Once I've recorded that, I go to the next one with that right arrow, and I record the next. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Unclick or release the mouse, and now that's recorded. I go to the next one. And now you see two blue segments over here. Notice the thing I'm recording is in yellow, and I'm seeing the context of the block before and the block after. Good, that's the basics of how you do the recording. You can continue to go back and forth. This arrow makes you move to the right. If you want to move left, you can use the arrow key on your keyboard, or you can click on this kind of timeline view over here to go exactly where you want to go. Talk about settings just briefly. This is where you can show the skip button or not show the skip button. And you can also decide which SFM markers you never want to record, and you can get those ticked here so that they never show up as a block. Another important thing for us as kind of administrators in these kind of things is the settings protection. Maybe you don't want the end user to really mess with any of the settings, and so you can hide them or require a password for them to get into the settings. At the end of the process, when all the recording is done, you want to get the actual results, and that's when you use the Publish button. Very nicely, the programmers have given us lots of different output formats for recording, and Scripture App Builder is one of those. And Scripture App Builder even has the inclusion of label file, and that's very helpful too. So that since you've already got the recording, you might as well get the label file. And if you're not familiar with Scripture App Builder, the label file is what's needed to do the highlighting verse by verse as the sound is being played in your Android app for Scripture App Builder. Let's do a quick publish here. I'm going to publish in this Audi Bible format. It gives me a log, and now it's done. And I can click on this link to see the results. And here's my Audi Bible. And here's breakdown of each book that has recordings. And if I go to John, I will see the WAV files there. So in this particular format, all of the chapter 1 individual recordings are all put together, and I could play that right now and hear the whole chapter if I wanted to. So that's the basics of how this works. It's here, called Hear This. There is a delete option here. Once you have a recording, you can remove that recording so that it now is ready to accept a new recording, and it's going to show it as gray. I think I covered the highlights of it. There's more. You can play with it, and there's a link on the outline that we gave you today, and you can go and download it for yourself and give it a try. Very, very nice tool. And I'll turn it back over to you, Doug.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Hopefully every month we'll have another demo or two, and it was very good to hear this, and we hope people will appreciate it. If you have some ideas for demos that you'd like to see in a future language technology podcast, go ahead and add them in the comments below the YouTube video. I noticed for our last month video we had a number of viewers, but there were no comments, and the comments would be a good way to leave some feedback and give us some ideas for what to do for the next episode. So many of you will be watching this recorded session, and so feel free. This will be uploaded to the front page of lingtransoft.info, and you can see this and always find the newest video there. So thanks a lot for joining us today. Thank you, Ron and Steve, for being here as well, and we'll see you all again in a month.